Lila was a young woman with big dreams, living in a small village where everyone knew each other. Life was simple, but there were rules to follow, and breaking them could bring consequences. When Lila was just 19, she found out she was expecting a child. She was excited, but the father, a young man she loved deeply, disappeared as soon as she told him. Her parents, angry and ashamed, turned their backs on her. "You've brought shame to this family," her father had said. Lila's mother, though sad, quietly followed her husband's decision. Within days, Lila was disowned by her family, and the village gossip quickly turned her into an outcast. She packed a small bag, taking only what little she could carry, and left the village behind. Lila moved to a nearby town, determined to start over. Life there was tough. No one wanted to hire a pregnant young woman, but Lila didn't give up. She took on any odd job she could find, cleaning homes, washing clothes, selling fruits at the market. Slowly, she began to build a new life for herself. Months later, Lila gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She named him Oliver. He became the center of her world, and Lila promised to give him everything she could. As Oliver grew, Lila's love for him only deepened. She worked hard every day to provide for him. There were moments of joy, but also moments of heartbreak. Many men came into her life, impressed by her strength and beauty. But when they learned about Oliver, they backed away. "I can't compete with your son for your attention," one man told her. "You'll never love me fully," another man said. Lila longed for a partner, someone to share her life with, but the rejection hurt, and she began to believe she would always be alone. But she never gave up on Oliver. She saved every penny she could, starting a small business selling fabric. It wasn't much, but it was enough to feed her son and provide for them both. As Oliver grew older, he became a smart, curious boy. He loved going to school, and his laughter filled their small home every day. But one afternoon, something happened that Lila hadn't expected. "Mama," Oliver said, sitting down beside her at the kitchen table. "Do I have a father?" Lila's heart skipped a beat. In all these years, Oliver had never asked about his father. She took a deep breath and tried to explain. "You do have a father, Oliver," Lila said softly. "But he's not with us. He left before you were born. I begged him to stay, but he didn't want to be a father." Oliver was quiet for a moment. Then he looked up at her with big, innocent eyes. "It's okay, Mama. You're the best parent I could ever have." Tears welled up in Lila's eyes. She promised herself that she would always be enough for him. She would give him everything she could. Years passed, and Oliver grew into a talented, successful young man. He started his own tech company and quickly became known for his intelligence and hard work. But despite his success, Lila noticed something troubling. The women around him weren't interested in who he truly was. They were only drawn to his wealth. At social events, they surrounded him, laughing at his jokes, trying to catch his attention. Lila could see right through their flattery. She knew that Oliver deserved more than superficial relationships. One evening, Oliver sat down to dinner with Lila. He was excited. "Mama, there's someone I've been seeing," he said with a smile. "Her name is Jane. I think she's the one." Lila's heart sank a little. She forced a smile and asked, "Why haven't you brought her to meet me yet?" "She's been busy with work," Oliver replied. "She's a fashion designer, but I promise you'll meet her soon." As days passed, Oliver invited Jane to their home. She was beautiful, confident, and sophisticated, the perfect match for someone like him, or so it seemed. But Lila couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She had seen this pattern before, women who were interested in Oliver's wealth, not his heart. One evening, Lila was walking home when 3 men cornered her in an alley, demanding she hand over her bag. Just as one of the men grabbed her arm, a young woman stepped in. "Let her go," the woman shouted, holding up her phone as if to call the police. The men hesitated, then quickly backed off and disappeared. The woman, Emma, made sure Lila was safe before walking her home. "You're very brave," Lila said, grateful for her help. "Thank you." "It's nothing," Emma replied with a smile. "Are you okay?" They chatted as they walked, and Lila learned that Emma worked as a secretary at one of Oliver's companies. The next day, Lila asked around the neighborhood about her new friend. She learned that Emma had come from a humble background, worked hard to get where she was, and was known for her kindness. Lila felt something inside her stir. Emma wasn't like the other people Oliver was surrounded by. There was something genuine about her. That evening, Lila couldn't keep her thoughts to herself. "Oliver," she said, "I met a young woman the other day. Her name is Emma. She's kind, humble, and helped me when I was attacked. I think she's different from the others you've met." Oliver looked at his mother, his face thoughtful. "You really think so, Mama?" "I do," Lila said. "She's not after your money. She's after your heart." Oliver eventually proposed to Jane. But a few weeks later, Jane's true intentions came to light. She wasn't interested in Oliver for who he was, only for his wealth. Lila stepped in, confronting Jane and exposing her for what she was. Oliver was heartbroken, but he knew his mother had always been right. He needed someone who loved him for who he was, not what he had. As time went on, Oliver and Emma grew closer. Oliver and Emma had become inseparable. What started as a slow burn of friendship grew into a deep and genuine love. Unlike the women Oliver had been used to, Emma didn't care about the extravagant things. She liked him for who he was, for his dreams, his determination, and his heart. The more they spent time together, the more Oliver realized just how different she was from the shallow relationships he'd had before. One afternoon, as they sat in a cafe, Oliver looked at Emma with admiration. She was sipping her coffee, talking about a new project at work, but he was captivated by the way she spoke, so passionate, so grounded, so real. He had never met anyone quite like her. "You know, Emma," Oliver said, reaching for her hand, "I've spent so much time focusing on building my business, on proving myself to the world, that I almost forgot what really matters." Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "And what matters to you now?" Oliver smiled softly. "It's you. It's us. I never knew what love could feel like until I met you. You're the one who made me realize that it's not about the money, the power, or the status. It's about having someone by your side who loves you for who you are. I want to build a life with you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She squeezed his hand, her voice soft but full of emotion. "Oliver, I've always believed that the best things in life come when you least expect them. You've been through so much, but you've always stayed true to yourself. That's why I love you. It's not about the wealth or the fame, it's about your heart." Lila sat by the window of her modest home, looking out at the stars. The night had fallen, and the cool breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees. It had been a while since Oliver had invited her to a family dinner. She smiled to herself as she thought about him and Emma. She had always known that one day her son would find someone special, but seeing him so happy now, so at peace with who he was, filled her with pride. For years, she had sacrificed everything for Oliver, working tirelessly to give him a good life, raising him alone. She had faced so much rejection, but she never let it break her. Every hardship, every tear, had been worth it to see him succeed. But now, seeing the man he had become, strong, compassionate, and wise, it was clear that her sacrifices had shaped him into someone incredible. And Emma, well, Emma was the kind of woman Lila had always hoped for him. Lila knew that Emma wasn't interested in his wealth, and that made all the difference. Emma had proven herself time and time again to be a woman of integrity, a woman who cared for Oliver for who he was. It gave Lila peace to know that her son was no longer alone in the world. She whispered a prayer of gratitude, thankful that Oliver had found someone who truly saw him. As the weeks passed, their relationship grew stronger, and Oliver knew he was ready for the next step. He invited Emma to attend a charity gala with him, a lavish event where many of the city's wealthiest people gathered. The event was to raise funds for children's education, a cause Oliver had been passionate about for years. Emma felt slightly out of place when they arrived, dressed in an elegant gown, surrounded by luxury and glamour. It was a world so different from her own, yet Oliver seemed completely at ease. He had changed over the past few months, more grounded, more focused on what truly mattered. They were surrounded by people who tried to impress him, but Oliver's attention was fixed on Emma, his hand resting gently on the small of her back. As they moved through the event, Emma felt a sense of awe. She had never been to anything like this before, but she was happy to be by Oliver's side. The evening was full of speeches, lavish dinners, and silent auctions. Emma noticed the way some of the women in the crowd looked at Oliver, not with admiration for his intellect or kindness, but with a clear interest in his wealth. It reminded her of the women who had surrounded him before, and a small pang of worry tugged at her heart. Oliver sensed her unease and leaned closer to her. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Emma nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the world Oliver had grown accustomed to was full of people who saw him only for his wealth. She wanted him to know the kind of person she was beyond the events and the glitz. "I'm fine," she replied, but there was a hint of sadness in her voice. Lila had always taught him to stay true to his values, to not let greed cloud his judgment. As he sat in his office, staring at the paperwork, he thought about what his mother would have said. He thought about Emma, too, and how she had always believed in him, even when the world was filled with temptation. Years later, Oliver and Emma were surrounded by friends and family who had supported them throughout their journey. They continued to build a life based on love, humility, and mutual respect. Oliver's company flourished, but he never lost sight of what mattered most: his family, his values, and the love he shared with Emma. Oliver's mother, Lila, had watched from the sidelines, her eyes full of pride. The moment she had feared, her son's engagement to Emma, was now upon her. While she had grown to love Emma for who she was, Lila still held some reservations. She had always been protective of Oliver, having raised him on her own. She had seen many women come and go throughout his life, but Emma was different. Emma was kind, genuine, and loved Oliver for who he was, not for his wealth. But Lila needed to be absolutely sure. She knew that love was a delicate thing, and she wanted to test Emma's sincerity. One quiet afternoon, Lila decided to put her plan into action. She had seen the way Emma interacted with Oliver, but she wanted to test her in a more subtle, yet revealing way. Lila wanted to know how Emma would treat someone who wasn't wealthy, someone who wasn't dressed in designer clothes or part of the high society circles. Someone like her. She knew that if Emma could see beyond the material world and treat her with respect, if she could show kindness and humility, then Lila would be able to rest easy, knowing that Emma was truly the woman Oliver needed. The next day, Lila set the stage. She called Emma, offering to help with some preparations for the upcoming wedding. She would play the part of a maid, someone humble and unseen, cleaning the house and taking care of small tasks around the house. Emma, unaware of her identity, welcomed her in, believing she was just a hired assistant. Lila wore simple clothes, a faded apron, and tied her hair back in a modest bun. She kept her head low and worked quietly, making sure Emma had no idea who she really was. Emma, busy with the wedding details, hardly gave her a second glance. As Lila moved through the house, she observed Emma's behavior carefully. She watched her as she interacted with the staff and the people around her. Was Emma kind to everyone? Did she treat everyone with the same warmth she showed Oliver? To Lila's surprise, Emma's kindness never wavered. She spoke gently to the staff, thanking them for their help and even offering them tea when they looked tired. Lila saw Emma's true nature, her genuine humility and her care for others, regardless of their status. She didn't know who Lila was, but she treated her with the same respect she gave everyone else. As the day went on, Lila's heart softened. She realized that Emma wasn't just in love with Oliver for his wealth or his status. She was in love with the man himself, his heart, his integrity, and his values. Lila had been worried that Emma might only be interested in what Oliver could give her, but she saw now that Emma's love was pure and genuine. After a full day of cleaning and running errands, Lila knew it was time to reveal herself. As the sun began to set, she walked into the living room, where Emma was sitting, making notes for the wedding. "Emma," Lila began, her voice gentle but clear, "I've been meaning to speak with you. You've been so kind to me today, and I want to thank you for that. But there's something I should tell you." Emma looked up, startled but curious. What do you mean? Lila smiled softly, her eyes gleaming with a mix of warmth and pride. I'm not the maid you think I am. I'm Oliver's mother. And I've been watching you carefully, how you treat others, how you treat me. And I have to say, I'm impressed. Emma's eyes widened in surprise, and a blush spread across her cheeks as she realized the woman she had been treating as a servant was, in fact, her future mother-in-law. I didn't know, Emma said, her voice faltering slightly. I'm so sorry if I offended you in any way. Lila chuckled softly, walking toward Emma and taking her hand. You haven't offended me at all, my dear. In fact, you've shown me everything I needed to see. You've treated me with kindness, respect, and humility, just as you've treated everyone else in your life. I see now that you are the woman who will make my son happy. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she realized the depth of the test she had unknowingly undergone. I love Oliver, Mrs. Montgomery. I truly do. I didn't know who you were, but I would never treat anyone differently. I believe that true love is about respect and kindness, no matter who they are. Lila smiled warmly, finally feeling at peace. She knew that Emma was the right woman for Oliver. Later that evening, Oliver arrived home, exhausted but happy, ready to share the excitement of the day with Emma. Lila sat him down in the study, a rare, serious expression on her face. Oliver, she said softly, I've had a day to reflect on everything. I wanted to see for myself, to know if Emma was truly the right person for you. Oliver's heart tightened with concern. What do you mean, Mom? Lila smiled, her eyes full of love for her son. She passed the test. She didn't know it, but I was watching her, seeing how she treated people, how she treated me. And I'm proud to say that Emma is everything I could have hoped for in a daughter-in-law. She's kind, humble, and she loves you for who you are, not for what you have. Oliver let out a sigh of relief, a smile spreading across his face. I knew you'd come around, Mom, but hearing you say it means the world to me. Lila reached out and hugged him tightly. I just want you to be happy, Oliver. And I can see that Emma makes you the happiest I've ever seen you. The following weeks passed quickly as Oliver and Emma's wedding day approached. Lila's approval had given both Oliver and Emma peace of mind, and as they stood together at the altar, surrounded by friends and family, they knew that the love they had found was real. Oliver looked at Emma with adoration in his eyes, knowing that he had chosen the right woman, and Emma looked back at him with the same love and admiration. Lila, standing in the front row, wiped away a tear as she watched her son take this next step into his future, confident that he had found his true partner.